Well, guys, it looks like one by one, all the predictions about Cardano are coming true. The amount of value and activity in the ecosystem seems to be on the rise. And recently, people are noticing that Cardano seems to be much more secure than some competitors. Who would have thought it? It's like they planned for this or something. Ready? Let's go. Today, we're going to discuss the recent spike in activity and people noticing that Cardano level security is a different animal compared to its peers, our biggest competitor still struggling with extreme centralization, and NFT gating in a Cardano metaverse. If you feel like it would be much higher security if these guys all weren't confined within the blast radius of a single RPG, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Oh man, guys. Oh man. We're starting to see some early signs that Cardano's solution to the blockchain trilemma is all coming together. We've got decentralization, scaling, and security. Every blockchain has to hit some kind of compromise between those three variables. It's looking more and more like Cardano may have hit a very, very good arrangement between those three different elements. We've been talking for the last couple of weeks about decentralization. The Cardano community fiercely guards the decentralization of Cardano as it should, and we're seeing the effects of that. Cardano is much more decentralized than its competitors. We'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. We've been talking about decentralization a lot, of course, over the last couple of weeks because of the Cardano Foundation's SPO poll. In terms of scaling, we're also seeing a lot more transaction volume. And of course, when we talk in terms of the blockchain trilemma, we're really talking about the ability of the blockchain to handle increased transaction volume, to scale, to handle that volume. But before we do that, we kind of need the volume too. And we're starting to see a lot more transaction volume just recently in Cardano. So this is the 3-month ADA transaction volume graph over at Masari. And you can see we're hitting quite a big spike. And, we don't know how long this is going to last. Of course, we always hope every time there's a spike in activity like this, we hope it's the beginning of a new market cycle. And this will be the norm going forward. And, a lot of times we get disappointed, like this one right here. We had a big spike in volume, down, another little almost like, 3/4 of the way up, and then down. So we don't know what's going to happen here. I don't think anyone can reliably predict whether any of these spikes in volume, are a signal of a new season, a new Cardano season, or if, this is just kind of a momentary blip and we'll go back to a normal volume in Cardano. But every time we have one of these big spikes, and we've had bigger spikes, if we look at the entire graph of all Cardano volume, this is not a gigantic spike compared to this one in March of 2022, or this one, the biggest one ever, in the very end of August in 2021. Of course, we had that big Cardano summit in Wyoming just after this, and there were a lot of things going on in the ecosystem. That was a really big momentous time in the history of Cardano right around here. So this is not a giant spike compared to these previous spikes, but this is a nice spike. After you've just gone through something like this, after you just went from this and this to this, and then it just kind of stayed down at this level. We were just in this valley, ever since, what is this? May of 2022, we've just been in this valley of lower activity. Mind you, still a lot more activity than back in this period, but pretty low volume compared to what we had seen in these previous spikes. So this is a nice change. This little spike in volume is a nice change. And what we're seeing is that the Cardano blockchain is handling it just fine. We're seeing, pretty full blocks, the Cardano blockchain operating at, pretty high levels of fullness of blocks, and everything is just fine. We don't have to turn our blockchain on and off like some of our competitors. We don't have catastrophic failures of our blockchain where we have to reboot everything. That doesn't happen in Cardano because Cardano was designed to scale. It was designed to handle these increases in volume that I think are inevitable going forward if the blockchain is to be successful, and I think it will. And we've still got a lot to do. We still have to, put in place things like Hydra and input endorsers and some of the efficiencies that'll come with things like Mithril. We've still got a lot to do in terms of scaling, but we've got a pretty good scaling roadmap. Input endorsers, particularly, are going to be kind of a big breakthrough for our blockchain in terms of scaling. Like I said, we've talked about decentralization quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. That leaves security. On Cardano security, the stark truth of the story is really pointed out here by our friendly Well. He says, at what point are we allowed to start pointing out that there are fewer or no hacks on Cardano than everywhere else? I'm keeping quiet about this topic until he's given the green light. So obviously he's kind of joking about staying quiet on this topic, but it's kind of true. The story of security in a lot of our peer blockchains is a lot of our competitor blockchains, our peers. It's that they're constantly hacked. They're constantly being exploited. People are constantly losing money because of security. And on Cardano, what we see is almost no hacks. We will have hacks. We'll have gigantic hacks and we'll be sad and people will be angry and all those kind of things that will happen on Cardano. But so far, we just haven't seen it. We haven't seen the amount and severity of exploits that have been seen in the robbery forest in the EVM world. And a big part of that is that over there, they're dealing with Solidity, which is, I don't want to say notoriously insecure. Okay, let's say it's notoriously insecure. And in Cardano, what we have is the other end of the spectrum. We have Haskell. We have Plutus, which is basically Haskell, which is famously secure. It's used for mission critical applications by organizations like NASA and the Department of Defense. when they need something to be extremely, extremely secure, they go to functional programming languages like Haskell. This is the other end of the spectrum from Solidity in the EVM world. So it shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody that Cardano is much, much more secure than Ethereum. And I think what's going to happen is that Ethereum, yes, they definitely had the first mover advantage in the smart contract, blockchain application scene. They were the first. They did smart contracts first. But just like everything else, I mean, it's been enough years that first mover advantage has served them well for a certain number of years. But I feel like that clock has already run most of the time that first mover advantage would be most valuable. Ethereum and the rest of the blockchains that are part of the robbery forest, they'll be around for a long time. They're not going anywhere. But when people start realizing this, that you see almost no hacks on Cardano and you see a huge number of hacks over in the robbery forest, people are going to start asking the question, maybe I shouldn't build my house in the robbery forest. Maybe if I'm going to have a business, I shouldn't open up my shop in the robbery forest. Maybe I should go over to this other mythical land of milk and honey where there are very few hacks. That's going to be very, very attractive. And in this next bull cycle, the same thing will probably happen. We'll have a huge number of exploits over there in the robbery forest, and people are going to start looking around and they're going to notice that there's this place in the distance where the sun's always shining. There are no storm clouds of hacks and exploits. I mean, we'll have a few. We'll have a few for sure. But I think what the history so far has shown us is that we're going to have way fewer. So far, we've had way, way fewer problems in this regard than the EVM world. And if that continues forward, and I don't think we have any reason to believe anything but that this trend will largely continue, people are going to notice. And this is going to make Cardano very, very attractive. In case you need a reminder of just how much more decentralized we are than our biggest competitors, check out this post from Stake with Pride. 93.5% of staked ETH is operated by major organizations. 6.5% of staked ETH is run by solo pool competitors. That is astounding. Ethereum staking is staggeringly centralized. And he points out that a rocket pool is included in that 6.5%. Not exactly what I would call a solo pool operator. I mean, I'm sure they have some rationale for that, but you understand what's going on here. And that is all coming from, looks like this post, solo stakers on Ethereum represent 6.5% of the active stake as of end of 2022. So Ethereum, whether by design, by accident, by negligence, by recklessness, or just by happenstance, somehow they've ended up in this position where only 6.5% of the delegation of the staked ETH is in pools operated by solo pool operators. This does not look like centralization. And as we've covered a lot over the last couple of weeks, I'm not going to run the numbers for you again because we've looked at them so many times over the last couple of weeks. Cardano is ridiculously more decentralized than Ethereum. Be aware, if you are an NFT person, the JPG Store mobile app is now out on both Android and iOS. But if you remember some of our past coverage about what the Android and Apple app stores were doing, you're probably expecting this note at the end of this thread, which says, P.S. Unfortunately, trading NFTs on mobile isn't allowed by Apple or Google without in-app purchases, so we're unable to provide this functionality for the time being. So no surprise, both Google and Apple want their cut. They will not allow anything to happen on their app stores, in any app on their app stores, unless they're going to get their cut. And they're certainly not down for a bunch of on-chain, off-app trading going on. They don't want us doing that. And of course, that's what all of us in crypto want to do. So there is that limitation. But still, it's nice to see a Cardano project, a Cardano platform get this big that it's got apps on both the relevant app stores. Finally, check out this post from Pavia. We will be live testing NFT token gating in the upcoming Pavia Dev Playground before rolling it out in the Central Plaza and the much larger outer world built by you. Notice we say NFT and not CNFT. I don't really care what NFTs they're talking about. I think it's cool. If you can restrict areas of a metaverse to people who own a certain NFT or other crypto asset, I think that enables some very cool functionality. You can imagine people building out, certain areas where there might be a certain game or a certain event going on, and the NFT, of course, acting as some kind of a ticket, a key to get you into that area. I think there's a lot of functionality that could be unlocked by this. So we're really glad to see a Cardano Metaverse project is pursuing this. I'm excited to see what this looks like in their fully realized virtual world. I have no idea how far out that is. I'm excited to see any of these big metaverse projects get to the point where their whole world basically is open up to us. We can actually get in there, walk around, build things. I think that's going to be a very interesting time. Hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.